Maybe.
Hey, Internet.
Hello, Internet. How are you, Internet? Welcome, Jeremy Baker, our guest host this week. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Wait, can we introduce the podcast first, Dale?
I mean, if you want.
It's Outrage Factory. The podcast where we look at the things that made you mad online and explain why you're dumb for caring. I'm Derek Bolin. That's Dale DeRuiter. And as Dale said, we have extra special guest Jeremy Baker joining us today. Jeremy, what's up?
Hey guys, not much, man. I just finished making a pie. I'm really psyched.
Oh, I saw that on Twitter. It looks delicious.
Yes, I posted it just before going live on this podcast.
I wish you could just smash stuff like that through Zoom and then I could eat it.
That would be delightful.
The podcast would just be us eating pie. And I think people would really appreciate it.
What kind of pie are we talking here?
It's called a coffee chess pie.
Damn.
Ooh. Does it taste like coffee?
Don't know. Never had it before. I'm
brand
new.
Damn.
I'm like the guy who in the pandemic at the very, very end, like on the 31st, started baking.
Nice.
My second pie I've ever made.
You did it right. Now's the time to get into baking because everyone else, like I was like back in March, I was like sourdough is awesome. I'm going to make sourdough bread. And then I did that for 4 weeks. And then by April, I was like, this is stupid. I'm not doing this anymore. And we still got like another year of this shit. So you're going to be able to enjoy those pies for a while.
Yeah. I went to the grocery store. They had vanilla. So I was like, okay, right on. This is the time to start.
Yeah, exactly. Like I have already been hitting the COVID eats, and I feel like since they just expanded the restrictions, it would have been like the perfect time to be like, well, I guess I'm going to learn how to make a pie. Dude, if it tastes like coffee, I'm so jealous. I love coffee.
Oh, there's a lot
stuff.
of coffee, and I had to make a coffee syrup. There's espresso powder. It's out of control.
This guy doesn't mess around with his pies. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Jeremy Baker, who is living up to his last name, joining us for the podcast.
Zing!
Huh?
There we go.
Jeremy, what's going on in your world this week, man?
Well, aside from making the pie, I'm going to go snowshoeing tomorrow.
Nice. Where?
Mount Seymour. You got to book ahead, right? Because of the pandemic. So
that's true.
My wife back in December was like, you better book it now, dude, if you want to go on a weekend. And I was like, oh, good. Thank you. And I went on, and sure enough, it was like the weekend I wanted to go was almost right booked. Yes. Oh, there he goes. Sorry.
That's fine.
Wandering around. He wants gummy bears.
I mean,
that's
I want gummy bears.
Work. I'm like working Monday, but then I have the rest of the week off.
Gummy bears and pie? Man, I want to go to your house.
He'll be in bed by the time there's pie. It has to set. And you know, making pies is like way more labor intensive than I thought. Because if you go to the grocery store and you buy a pie from Save On, it's like what, $7 or $8, right?
Yeah. And
so I just think to cheap. And then the hipster pie place in Port Moody opens up, and it's like, God, I don't know how much a pie is there, like $35 or something crazy. And I think, oh, that's outrageous. Until I made a pie. And I went, oh, even $30 for a hipster pie is a decent price because it is a day experience. I do not leave the grocery store without spending $50. Like it's
yeah. You buy the ingredients and then you spend like what, 8 to 10 hours of your life making the thing.
And then all day. I mean, I got my Empire Total War going on off to the side because you do something, you wait, you do something, you wait.
Yeah. Like last week I made jambalaya and it was the same thing. Like I went and I spent $80 at the grocery store getting stuff for that and a bunch of other stuff. And it took like 4 hours. And I was like, next time I'm just buying this.
And how old are your kids, Dale?
I don't have kids.
Oh, I thought you had kids. I thought you were making it for your kids.
I made jambalaya. It's such a dad brag to make.
Well, I remember you posting that on Twitter that you were making jambalaya. And I was like, oh, cool, the guy. And I thought it was going to be an example of you spent 8 hours and $80 on this jambalaya. And then your kids like have one bite and they like run away and don't like it.
Yeah. No, I'm just practicing my dad skills, I guess. Like the slow cook stuff, that's what I'll do when I become a dad, I guess. I don't know. It's still up in the air.
Hey. Speaking of dad skills.
Oh, and coffee beans.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It works.
And children eating stuff?
Yeah, that also, you know, I liked my segue better, but we'll roll with it.
All right. Well, I mean, and when it comes to be dad, you need a little help. I need
a lot of.
It's funny because when we're like planning for this podcast, I was like, should we even talk about this? And I was like, we have to talk about this. Jeremy, did you see what happened with Derek in his like
Yeah, you know what? I did not fully appreciate
Drama?
all the drama because, you know, I follow you guys and I follow a lot of Vancouver Twitter folks. And
It's
and I only kind of briefly saw them all smashing on you. And I didn't really get into it. I just was like,
thank
all
you
right.
for not doing that. We'll lead off with the Bean Dad story itself.
Yeah,
first,
okay. You
and
explain the
then
Bean Dad story, and
follow
then you
up.
can explain how you got totally torched on the internet.
And this is like the Bean Dad is one of those stories where like you try and explain it to someone who isn't on Twitter and they just give you like a blank stare and they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like,
The only
what
thing
is
that could be outraged because of Twitter? Yeah.
what
Yeah.
is a Bean Dad? John Roderick, I think is his name.
Who in a band called the Long Winters.
Yeah, who are most notable for doing the former theme song to the My Brother and Me podcast, which I think was their biggest claim to fame.
Have you ever heard of the podcast Song Exploder?
I have not.
Okay, so Song Exploder is a music podcast where they take a song every week or whenever the dude makes it. And he like dives into the song, right? He pulls the song apart. He has the artist on the show to explain the entire song. Like it's a 25-minute podcast on one song. And they're in the studio and they've isolated tracks so the singer can talk about the drums and the bass and how they messed around with having a toy accordion, but they pulled it out. But here's what it sounds like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And one of the early Song Exploder podcasts that I first heard was on the Long Winters. They have a song called the Commander. I don't know. Something about the Commander. The Commander sleeps at night or something. And it's about the 1986 Space Shuttle Challenger explosion.
Okay.
And that was when I first heard about the Long Winters because the podcast is outstanding. And about John Roderick. And I remember following him, I think around that time. But then after a little while, I started being like, I don't know if I like this guy's takes. Like even before Bean Dad, I just was like, oh, he's just not. His takes weren't for me. But that song, outstanding.
Good musician, bad guy. I think is what
bad takes. I guess
So,
like his hot takes are a little too. To me, his hot takes, like the Bean Dad one, is a little tepid. That he's like treating like it's a hot take, and you're like, I don't really.
Yeah.
So he was just like he's a guy. Apparently, he's like renowned for just being like this cantankerous dad figure. Even he has a podcast that he co-hosts with Ken Jennings. And after he shared this story and got shit on for it, Ken Jennings was like, "This is just like a character he plays on the internet." But it was he went and he told this story about how his 9-year-old daughter couldn't open a can of beans, didn't know how to use a can opener, and essentially he was like, well, you're not eating until you fucking figure it out. And the way he told this anecdote, it was like 9 hours of this girl like
6.
crying and
6 hours.
Sorry. 6 hours. That's nothing.
That's 30%.
That's 6 hours of her just like learning, but not in a way in which the father is like, hey, let me help you teach you. It was like, fucking, here's like, go find a YouTube video, figure out how to use a can opener. Until that happens, you're not eating. And when you are eating, it will be the spoils of that can and nothing else. Which, like, looking at the story, I looked at it and I was like, I just took it at face value. And I was like, this guy's like playing the heel for the internet and telling this story that maybe he intended to be amusing, where it was like, unless she gets this can of beans open, she's not eating. And that would be funny to people if it seemed ridiculous enough. So I was like, okay, like this is not like, it's a joke that fell flat, but like people lost their fucking minds on this guy. Cause I'm looking at it through the viewpoint of the dad, being a dad myself. I was like, that's the guy I relate to in the story. And like, my kid does dumb shit all the time, and I'm always happy to talk about it on the internet.
And Parenting Twitter writes absurdist jokes about their kids all the time.
Yeah, it's like what keeps it keeps us sane, right? Like parenting itself is a pretty fucking thankless experience, and you know, we all trade these anecdotes. So we're like, here's an amusing story about me being a shitty parent. But what I missed in my defense of Bean Dad, so the Bean Dad story happens, people lose their fucking minds. I go on the internet like 24 hours later, and I'm like, yo, people losing their minds on this is evidence of like just how the toll that COVID has had on our mental health, because this is what people are getting mad about. And the thing I missed in that is that a lot of people had really shitty experiences with their fathers or with father figures or with adult males in their lives. And like that, hearing that story was very triggering for them, because that was how their fathers acted towards them. It was like a lot of, and I get it now. At the time, I did not have a full appreciation for that. So I had a shitty take on the shitty take. It's just like, you know, shitty takeception. I ended up like really doubling down on it, and then ultimately, I think, just
where
like,
you guys get in trouble. That's where John Roderick got in trouble. He fucking doubled down and he started yelling at other people. So then what happened with you? Because like I said, I only kind of half saw what happened. Was just people were really mad, and they all speak in code on Twitter. They don't even say what they're mad about. they're all just like, I told that guy off, and I didn't want to like DM anybody or be like, what are you gossiping?
Who's that guy?
The funny thing was, like, I'm Derek's best friend and we do this podcast. I didn't even know, because Derek, like, I was at work and Derek had texted me like, oh, I quit Twitter. And I'm like, that's probably just like, I didn't think it was related to this or anything. Like I had seen his bad take, and I'd been like, that guy seems like a dickhead to say 6 hours and stuff, whatever. And then the next day he texts me, he's like, I quit Twitter. And I was like, I just thought it was like a COVID, like I need a break from this bullshit thing. And then I get home and I see that the Outrage Factory Twitter has like 15 notifications. And I was like, oh shit, did we get a bunch of new followers? Cause I'm doing that thing where I'm like spam following everybody. Like I just go follow everybody.
Stop saying that. You're giving away our secrets.
Okay.
He's following you because he wants to follow you on Twitter, and he likes what you have to say on Twitter.
I'm following you because you are intelligent and attractive.
There you
go. So I see this, and then I said, but the weird thing was, since Derek had like posted from there and then quit again, and then the people who he was talking to like blocked the Outrage Factory thing, all I see is all these like, you can't see this tweet because it's blah 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 private, and there's like 6 of them, and then there's like a tweet being like, I can't believe you said this, and then like blank 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 blank, how could you do this? And I was like, what?
So here's what
I saw a lot of that. I saw a lot of like dunking on like a thing that wasn't there, and I was like,
yes,
what's going on?
Which I get. Like, for a long ass time, I was a guy who was pretty deeply unhappy with his life. And my outlet for that was to go on Twitter and just like pick fucking fights with people. And it was usually about stuff that I didn't particularly care that much about, but I had to be this contrarian asshole all the time.
Oh, you're like a libertarian.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Like Rand Paul or whatever.
Ben Shapiro.
Yeah, no, Dale, that's a bridge too far.
Sorry,
man.
that was a low blow. I'm sorry. Just tried to sneak that in.
But what happened was I like go on and I get into it with people, and at the end of it, I'm like, I really pissed some people off. And to those people, like, I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry for minimizing your experience with your fathers and not understanding in the moment how the Bean Dad story had affected you. So what I do is I deactivate my Twitter account, because I'm just like, I need a break from all this horse shit. So deactivated my Twitter account. And then a couple hours later, I'm like, oh, we have an alternate Twitter account that is the podcast account. So I'm like, I'm going to pop in there and just see what people are saying. And there was this thread of people who like, there are people who I haven't talked to personally in like a fucking year or two. Like, I blocked them on Twitter a long time ago, and they're popping off about how toxic and shitty I am. Oh, wow. And I was like, oh boy. So I got a little defensive about that. And I wrote up this thing being like, essentially it was like 200 words of like, maybe you're the one who's toxic. Maybe you're the problem.
Yeah, that'll work really well.
So tripling down now.
It landed about as well as you would expect. And it was a shitty defensive way to react. I think I was still pretty like, emotions were heightened. So I did that, and then pretty much like nuked our Outrage Factory Twitter account. Dale, sorry about that. And now I'm just like, I'm like, I gotta step away from Twitter. Like, regardless of like that whole Bean Dad thing and how it went down, I'm in a place where I'm like, the opinions of these people who are essentially strangers to me, I'm letting them have like way too much of an impact on my life. And I'm also like, I can't trust myself to behave in a way that is not completely shitty to other people when I'm on there. So I was just like, no more Twitter. I'm at least doing a dry January from Twitter, and we'll see what happens after that.
All right, well, that's, I guess, better. Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm like a big, when I get home at the end of the day, I just put my phone on the mantle and stay off the internet.
Yeah, I mean, that would probably
I do that normally, but I don't also write like the crazy hot takes. So this is my normal day. And then I'm also like, Derek, have you considered edibles? That would help you.
It might, yeah, and maybe we get to that point where I just like mellow myself out before I go on Twitter, and everyone can have a better time.
That, fighting on the internet, to me, like maybe used to be fun. A while ago, I stopped doing it. My life got 1,000 times better.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like just my mental health, like not to, that. It used to be something I did every day. Like that was a hobby of mine.
No way to live life, man.
Yeah, and now
you probably took years off your life.
Oh, 100%. And now it almost seems like it's gotten worse. This was like 4 or 5 years ago. And in the meantime, it feels like it's almost to a point now where like anything can trigger people or set off a fight. And like everything's not politicized, but like a polemic issue. Like you're on one side or you're on the other, except when it comes to my take, and it was just me versus everyone. I was like, fuck all you, everyone united against me. So I guess, I brought people together.
Yeah. I think when people attack you, obviously you get defensive. Like that's every person. You get attacked. Then you get defensive. Some people's defense is to go back on the offense, like your case there. I mean, I whenever I write a take on the internet, I'm just like, do I own this take every time I write it? And if someone doesn't like it, I don't reply.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
a big thing
like,
for
Jeremy Baker, and I'm like, well, I'm done. Me and that guy are not bros.
Yeah.
And occasionally I've written a joke that's not
been well received.
Yeah, but like in a way where the critique is a fair critique, let's say, you know what I mean? Like maybe I do, I don't know. One time I wrote a joke that was like one of those like assumption of gender jokes, you know what I mean? Where it's like, whoa, you're assuming my gender, right? Like to me, that's funny. I'm like 40-year-old straight guy, right? You didn't think too much about it. Someone just wrote like, hey, those type of jokes I don't appreciate.
Yeah.
Didn't yell at me. Wasn't like you're canceled, blah, blah, blah. And I just deleted it. You know what I mean? I was like, yeah, you're right. That joke's like a bullying joke. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, I'm done with that. And same on the radio, you know what I mean? You say your thing, boom, 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 you get busted, you get people pop off on you. Sometimes they're just mad. I ignore them. Sometimes they got a good critique. You're like, oh, and you come on the radio and you apologize. You say, hey man, someone gave me a different like perspective, and then you got to move on.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I always try to do is if I say something, because I'm used to me being the one who offends people, so it's funny. But if I ever say anything that offends people, if people say, "Oh, this is wrong" or whatever, and then I just like kind of half dunk on myself, and then we're good, or like continue their joke or whatever. But one thing I always like, if I typing something, I'm like, oh, is this worth the effort of defending this? Like, do I even care that much to have to defend this take? And then I'm usually, if it's something super like labor intensive, I'll just delete it.
My thing is always, if you're asking that question, it's like, if I ever have to go to someone and be like, hey, is this appropriate with this cause? Like the answer is always fucking yes.
Yeah.
Like you should not be posting that at all.
I guess there's a difference between having like a hot take or having a point of view versus being offensive, right? So it's like in my case, like I'll sometimes be like, oh, I want to have a point of view, right? Like I don't know, say we're talking about apples and oranges, and I'm just like, fuck oranges, and I believe that in my core, then I will post that and people will come back at me, but I don't care because I think oranges are dumb, and it, you know what I mean? Like, and that's how I will operate. But if it's like, I don't know. I guess at the end of the day, I always just think is this bullying? Really?
That's a
If
good
I'm
thing to
punching
ask.
down, if I'm punching down, I don't post. If I'm punching up, I don't give a shit if I break someone. You know what I mean? Like if I'm like,
Mhm.
Donald Trump's a piece of shit, and someone's like, oh, I like Donald Trump, that's offensive. I'm like, get fucked. You know what I mean? But if it's like, someone below, I don't want to use the word below, but like maybe someone that doesn't have the same platform or ability to defend
I get what you're
themselves
saying,
versus an attack from me, then it's like, then that's a no, right?
Well, and in this case, it was literally John Roderick versus a child. So that was definitely punching down. And then it was like me versus people who were essentially victims of abuse in one form or another from their fathers or father figures. So again, I fucked up. I know 0% of the people who are pissed off at me are watching this podcast because Dale, what did they call us? The toxic male podcast?
Yeah, it's some toxic masculinity stuff, which is
you
which
guys got it all.
if they've gotten this
God,
far,
Jeremy, sorry about your brand. We probably could have warned you before you came on here.
I
but,
just feel like they haven't watched any of the old episodes if they're just coming to this conclusion now. Because like there's one episode where me and you talked about being in elementary school and shitting under a tree. Like this isn't the place to go if you're gonna like make your brain bigger. This is the place to go if you want to laugh and have like, I guess, our semi-offensive like hot takes on stuff. The thing I found about Being Dad was I think it kind of surprised everybody. Like it hit a raw nerve and people were kind of ambushed by it. Like all these, like there was a lot of people our age, like females who I guess had troubling relationships with their dad, and then they saw this tweet and it kind of, I think what happened was it brought up all these emotions that they hadn't really dealt with for a long time and they didn't really realize were still there. So it's like they, like when Derek said his take defending this guy, they're like, what? And they just kind of saw red and lashed out. Like to throw out toxic masculinity, that's not like hey, I kind of object to your opinion. That's like here's a fucking fireball, eat it. So
well,
I
it's something
feel
that
like,
evokes strong and like I'm pretty active because I'm a sober guy, so I'm pretty active in like the mental, the self-help and self-improvement space. And like it's wild how like a lot of people are just like I'm not going to say fucked up, but they're like they're traumatized by their upbringing and by what we all thought was just like a normal upbringing at the time. And then you find out that like a lot of our parents did a pretty shitty job of just like making kids feel safe or making them feel loved or appreciated. And this is something that's like super widespread. And now you see it playing out in all these ways, like anxiety and depression and substance abuse, and like something that everyone knows that somebody that is struggling with at least one or all of those things. So I think I get it. Like now that I can look at it through the abuse lens and be like, fuck yeah, I could see why a lot of people would be really bothered by that.
I think it was also like weirded out. Like I guess ultimately, was it true? Like when I first saw the take everyone was mad at, I just thought it was an absurdist joke. You know what I mean? Like, there's no way this guy didn't feed his kid for 6 hours. Is kind of what I first thought. But and then even when he gave his apology, he was like, "Oh yeah, we snacked on some pistachios during the 6 hours."
yeah.
Oh, that was real? Like you actually did that?
You actually starved your child for 6 hours.
Yeah, that was the thing I found too, was like he said like 6 hours, and pretty much everybody's like, there's no way he did this.
That's
for
absurd,
6 hours.
right? So then I think it's absurd.
Yeah. But then there are parents out there who would do this. So it's like, even though he was exaggerating and it may or may not have been painfully obvious, you still have to take it like it's what actually happened, because this stuff has actually happened to people. So you can't really like, I don't know. It's
Don
like
had a big platform. You gotta know when you write something. What did he have? Like 20,000 followers, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
You got to think when you write something like that, it's going to be seen. And then, like I said earlier, if you're going to write it, you got to eat it or you got to delete it. It's like, and he kind of didn't do either. He kind of danced around it and doubled down and started yelling at other people and was like, "You can't take a joke." And I've heard lots of things. I learned this kind of stuff from like my own program director when I was in Victoria. I had this program director named John Shields, and he was basically like, if you have to explain your joke, it's not a good joke.
It's not.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
If you got to explain it, if I got to be like, no, you don't get it. Well, you got to.
Here's why it's funny.
Here's like
Yeah.
a 14 paragraph like backstory of my joke, then it's not a good joke.
And even if it is like, even if it's like that, then it's obviously not funny enough for you to be putting out
100%.
there.
I've written
Yeah.
stuff where I'm like, this is hilarious, and someone's like, that's not funny. I'm like, well, here's why it's funny, and I'm like, it is funny to me, but
Yeah.
to a stranger, if I got to explain it, it's like, yeah, it's not good. Like, it's just not a well-made joke.
Yeah, exactly.
And
And
I
it's
think-
like, sorry, I was gonna say the worst thing was that he was talking about how he needed to do this. So if the apocalypse happened, he could be Apocalypse Dad, and then he referenced the book On the Road. And I was like, yo, if you're gonna
It's just the road.
The Road? Oh yeah, it wasn't the Jack Kerouac book.
Very different books.
So if you're going to reference one of the darkest pieces of literature in the last like 20 years, then you should take your joke to the next level. And I was just offended that he wasn't offensive enough with his joke, because there's material from The Road that he could have gone so dark and it would have been
Is that
like,
the one where they're like eating people or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
and in
That's
the
a good
movie,
movie.
he like teaches his kid to like kill himself in case he gets like taken
Oh,
by
yeah,
the
yeah.
animals and stuff.
I remember. I never read the book, but I watched the movie.
Yeah, that's what I never read the book.
I love reading the books, but yeah, not
I
that time.
Yeah.
I'm a noted book reader, and I want to make everyone aware that I did read the book.
Ladies, Derek read books. I haven't done that in a while. I think the last time I did that was saying you read books. I'm gonna read a book. I always talk about how I don't read books, but this guy I followed, he had written some books, and I was waiting for it to come out on Audible, and he's like, hey, if you buy them from me, I'll give them to you for a deal. And I was like, ugh, like read. All right. So I started reading a book
Pyramid
today.
scheme guy who's like, okay, you can buy from Indigo, but if you buy through me, I get 5%. You tell a friend,
Yeah.
you get Derek reading,
Yeah.
then you get another 2%.
You buy a box of books from me, and you can turn around and sell them to your friends for a markup, and now you're a book retailer.
It was actually like, you could buy my book off Amazon because I wanted to buy it. He's like, or you could save $10 in shipping, and I could just email you the PDF copy of the ebook. And I was like, let's do that. Then I
Yeah,
can have
that's
it
cool.
right now. So
I'm like the guy that has about 6 books half read on my bedside table right now. So I'm like,
yeah,
Yeah,
I have.
constantly. It's my
I was
fucking
like,
life.
when COVID started, I was like, I'm gonna reread all of Dune before the movie comes out.
oh,
And
smart.
then I didn't.
Oh,
I bought 3 of them, and then I didn't read them because I'd read
nice.
the first one like 20 years ago, and I was like, I better brush up.
This is a
'cause
nice thought, though.
The only thing I
That was a
remember
nice
from
thought.
the book is the joke, "The spice must flow." So now
Oh,
I
yeah,
guess I'm just
like,
waiting
That's
for the movie.
but before this whole COVID thing blew up everything, I had a show with my buddy Justin. And then when COVID started, we took our show online, kind of doing what you guys are doing, right? Like going on Facebook Live, right? And I was saying
Yeah.
we had our little producer guy, Mark, and we had a pretty good show going on. And that was always the running gag was I'm the Dune fan, and my buddy, my co-host Justin is just not. He's just not into nerd culture at all, like at all. So we dunk on each other, and
Yeah.
mostly he dunks on me.
And the funny thing is, like, if you've
And
read Dune, then you're all in. You're like, Frank Herbert is so smart. All of this social commentary is so smart. And you're
Real.
like, yeah. And then like people are like who haven't read Dune, they're just like, what are you talking about? You're like, the sad verbs mean this, and the spice means
Ice
this.
and the corporations.
Yeah, and then House Atreides is this political party, and people are like, oh, I'm not.
And then you watch the 1980s movie again, and you're like, it's maybe not as good as I remember.
Yeah, you're like, okay, just wait for the new movie to come out.
I'm psyched on the new one. I hope.
Yeah.
It's pretty it's anti-capitalist, isn't it? Like that's the whole.
Yeah, I feel
is that
like the
I'm,
vibe-
I'm
yeah,
never. I'm
the
gonna out
vibe.
myself as a.
Yeah, the vibe a little bit is like that for sure. Definitely the powers of, and then just like almost like the, I don't know, the single-minded like pursuit of the spice, and
Yeah. Like, I guess you could say the spice is like oil, and it's
or
just
any-
like,
it could be really any resource.
yeah,
I guess.
what people do and how they compromise their own morals just to like keep the resources flowing to,
And the
like, to
fuck they
people who
give
even
for
need it,
the
yeah.
native people or the indigenous people to where your raw resource is, and it's out of control.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's a timeless story. It was a powerful story in the 80s. And then Timothy Chalamet, man,
They're remaking it.
Yeah. So instead of reading the Bean Dad tweets, just read Dune. It's a bit longer.
I mean,
but
I got free time. I'm not on Twitter anymore, so I might
There
just
you
read,
go.
read a
So
book
you're done
or
on
something,
Twitter. You
like,
got
learn
dunked on
something.
so badly that you're done.
What, like done?
Yeah, are you done on Twitter? You're just like, fuck Twitter?
I'm done for 30 days, and then I'm gonna like I don't think I'm gonna be as involved on Twitter as I have been. Like I lived by Twitter. Like I spent a fucking lot of my life on there. And
to go cold turkey,
yeah,
how's that
I
feel?
think I've been spending a lot of time on Reddit, which I actually like. Reddit's
better, but
it's okay.
I find
yeah, like,
Reddit a little
it's-
more human.
do you?
Like, yeah, well,
It-
I mean, you can follow just the stuff you want to. Like, you could go into bad Reddit and it's fucking a nightmare. But if you're like, oh, I'm just gonna like follow like the Canucks, follow news stories. But my favorite is they have all this like feel good stuff. Like they have subreddit Made Me Smile, subreddit Today I Learned.
Okay.
So every once in a while, I'll be like, oh, I'll just go through all the Today I Learned, and it's like people
learning
just talking
about Dale.
Yeah.
Learning
all. Today I learned about Dale, but it's just like you just learn all this.
Yeah, I only go on
shit.
Reddit for Dungeons and Dragons. That's it.
Oh,
I used
that's
to
a
go
good
on the
thing to go on
Vancouver
Reddit.
but like whatever R Vancouver. But it was just like
Yeah.
the saddest place where like
Yeah.
guys work in tech complain about their salaries, and I was like, this is annoying. They're like, I only make 120 grand a year, but in Seattle I'd make 220 grand a year. And people would
Who
just
can live here?
yeah, and people would reply, just be like, well, move to Seattle then, you crybaby. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Do you not know where the U-Haul place is?
Yeah, like, what
It's
the
just
hell?
down the street.
And then, they'd be crying about their awesome salary. You know what I mean? They'd be like,
Yeah.
I make a lot of money, but I'd make even more elsewhere. Vancouver sucks. And people are like, no, dude, you suck.
Yeah. I mean, if I made
That's
120
just
grand
how
a
it
year,
works, man. Look,
I would be not crying about it. I would just
only
be
make
like,
$1 million on the Senators, but if I was on the Toronto Maple Leafs, I'd make 2. Well, then go to the Leafs.
yeah, exactly.
demand a
Cool.
trade.
Yeah. There's a point where like salary just like is just it like stops being a real number to me. And I think that's like 125 grand. Anything above that, I'm like, that seems like a lot. I don't really know how much that is.
Man, it
In
all
real
seems
life
like
money.
if you're making $25 an hour, you're killing it.
Yeah.
Well, what is it? They've done studies, and it's like 70. If you make 70,000 a year,
Yeah.
that's the point at which like if you make that, you earn enough to like live comfortably and be happy, and like
and I might
anything
adjust
above
for
that,
your
you
city,
basically
but yeah.
yeah.
Like I might be like
Anything above that, you
Saskatoon,
just
you're going to be the
start.
richest guy in town, but in Toronto, or
Oh,
Vancouver-
70,000.
You know, but I mean,
You're the
honestly,
king of Saskatchewan.
But my dad used to work for a company that owned factories, right?
Mhm.
And this company was based in Burnaby, but they owned factories. The whole like mantra of the dude was like he still wanted to produce things in North America, so
Yeah.
he owned factories in like just all over the place, California, Illinois. He had one in Kentucky, and my dad said, like, you know, an engineer, the same job, right? So it'd be the same job. My dad had to hire all these different jobs. So they had a factory in California, Texas, Illinois, Kentucky, like all over the place. Be the same job, but in California, it had to pay 120 grand. Same job paid 70 in Kentucky. But he's like, the dude in Kentucky was actually happier. The guy in California always worried about money. He always wanted more money. He needed more money. He felt poor on 120. The guy who made 70 in Kentucky, my dad was like, oh, he lives in the best part of town in Lexington or wherever, you know, where there's lawns and he has a big house and he's got a wife and kids. So he was just like, it's all very relative, right? Like to where you live and your cost of living. And he also said the other funny thing that he always found hilarious as a Canadian was, you know, like, let's say in America, right? They're always like, buy American, right? Buy American, made in America. And Republicans are really huge on that shit. So in Kentucky, you know, it's all Republicans all the time. And my dad's like, we would get some mucky muck, you know, who wants to build widgets at our factory. And he'd be like, well, you guys cost 5 cents a widget, but I can get it for 4 cents a widget in Mexico. And my dad's like, yeah, but you know, like we have this big factory in you live here. We employ the, you know, town. Everyone made good money. My dad at the time said, you know, they all made like $15 an hour, which was good money in Kentucky at that time. And these guys are from Kentucky. They vote Republican. they would write in their Twitter bio, like, make stuff in America, fuck you, China, fuck you, Mexico. You know what I mean? Like they would write that out.
Mhm.
But when it came down to it, they would take their business and go to Mexico to save a penny on a widget, like without batting an eye. My dad's like, wow, cool. Like it's all talk, but when it's real, they
Yeah.
don't do it.
Yeah,
So
it's
he's
like
like,
people
Well, the
just
thing that interestingly enough, on Reddit, I saw a thread, and it was about how Chinese GDP was like poised to overtake America's in the next couple decades or something, and everyone in the threads, they're all bitching about it, and they're like, "Well, thanks for stealing all our jobs, China." And it's like, no, China didn't just like arbitrarily decide that they were going to manufacture things there. It was American businesses that were like, "Hey, we want to save money." And make more money and increase our profit margin. So we're going to ship everything overseas. Like it's not China's fault that American businesses made that
Yeah,
decision.
I mean,
exactly.
it's obviously super complicated, but part of it is people making decisions. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like here's a guy who could make a decision of where to manufacture his widgets, and he just chose the place that was 1 penny less, even if it was detrimental to his own town he lived in.
Mhm. Yeah, the thing, like Derek said, is just like China can manufacture everything for so much cheaper because they have so like lax rules for like environmental exposure and all this stuff, and their labor's so cheap that people are like, oh yeah, I'll just manufacture it in China. Like one thing I've seen in like
But
the
it's not necessarily cheaper. It's only cheaper if you're
oh yeah,
making if you're making 10,000 widgets,
yeah,
100,000 widgets, maybe it's cheaper, and you don't mind the long turnover.
hmm
But if you're making less overall, and you want a little higher quality, and you need it quicker, like you're like, I need the widget, I need it tomorrow, then it is cheaper and more efficient to make it in North America sometimes.
yeah, that's true. And one thing I noticed is in China, a lot of places who deal with like stuff that's made out of steel, they'll get all the stuff that's made in China out of steel, and then they'll bring it here, and then they'll like do the fine like drilling and
And that's
welding on
fine
it
too.
there.
I mean,
Yeah,
trade is good, like ultimately for everybody. I mean, trade is good. So it's got to dial it in a little better. And you know what? Eventually China will be too expensive. It'll be another country, right?
yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Like once their GDP,
Plenty of countries out there to exploit.
Yeah, right. We'll pick another one.
yeah, there's a whole world.
Oh, whatever, man. That's why Elon Musk is moving to Mars. He's like, where there's no environmental rules.
Yeah,
Absolutely nothing. And those Martians, work for free.
nothing.
yeah, you can't do air pollution if it's the vacuum of
There's no
space.
air.
Do we want to talk about Elon Musk becoming the new richest? Do we give a shit which white guy is the richest man alive right now? Like,
I mean, I like Elon Musk as a person better than Jeff Bezos, so I'm kind of pumped about it.
Yeah,
The only-
you know what? I
yeah.
don't know who I like better. I think ultimately I like not Bezos, Musk better only because he's married to Grimes and she's from Vancouver.
Yeah, and she makes some good tunes. She
She's
made some good
Got the-
tunes.
the
I
local
don't
connection.
know about the latest ones.
No, I think her latest record
yeah.
her latest record had, I mean, her music was never really personally my style, but it always tends to get pretty good, like critical response.
Yeah.
And she is an artist, and really she's like a capital A artist, when it comes like the music and like image and the graphic design, I mean, she takes care of like all of that. To her is really important. Right. But because she's from Vancouver, I feel like Elon Musk a little bit is like Vancouver's like billionaire-in-law. You know what I mean?
Like Sugar Daddy.
he's like a local, basically. Yeah.
He's our billionaire-in-law. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
He's married into the family.
The thing about Musk is the way he got rich
like
is
it.
all this like
Yeah, I'll take that.
technical stuff. Like one of the ways he made a whole bunch of money this year was I think it was Honda, or it was like some car company agreed to sell Teslas so they could get it was in the UK, so they would get like a certain like government tax cut to sell their Teslas there. And since the company that he had partnered up with didn't have electric cars, he would get all these kickbacks of the like tax redemption or the tax like cut. So he ended up making like $1 billion just because Honda
That guy
in the
wakes
UK
up in the morning
was
and makes $1
selling.
billion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
he's crazy. The only thing a few things that pissed me off about Musk over time, but at the beginning of the pandemic, Musk really pissed me off because he didn't take it serious. You didn't take it seriously.
Mhm.
He's a billionaire. He's a billionaire. You should be smarter. They didn't take it seriously.
Mhm.
And where he has his factory, the town wanted to close it down, right? Like for a little while. And he was like, I'm going to move my factory.
He fought it.
Using his money and those jobs as this like sledgehammer to smash on like, town councilors. Those guys make like no money. And I don't know. It's such a cruel thing to go to a town and be like, give me more or I will destroy all these jobs and move them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And with the pandemic, especially, I just thought it was really ugly and gross. And that was a while ago, right? That was at the beginning of the pandemic. And you get mad and then you kind of calm down. Like, I don't give it. Like, we talked about that earlier, Derek. It's like, I don't give a shit really. Like, I don't know Elon Musk. I don't own a Tesla. I don't live in California. Who cares if he moves it to Texas? But I just thought it was like kind of a douchey thing to do. And I'm like, come on, man, you're a billionaire. Like,
you don't need to make
it's
that
your workers
extra
getting
money,
sick.
yeah.
You're not getting sick.
Yeah, care about them.
Care about your workers.
We see a lot of
California. Like, you made your cars in California for a reason. Then it matters. Now the going gets tough and you want to bounce. It's like, come on, man. Like, you're part of the community or not.
Yeah. And the other thing about
Ultimately,
Elon Musk is he's like this far away from being a supervillain. Like right now he's doing all this stuff and he's good. And then it's like, if he wanted to be a dickhead, like with his like tunnel underneath LA and like going to the moon and like being the guy who flies. Yeah. And the guy who like flies NASA around and all this stuff. Like if he wanted to, he could just be like, give me all this power or you can't have access to any of the stuff I have. Or if he like sets up a mining thing on the moon and he gets all the lithium and then he can like, doesn't have to go through anybody to make his own batteries, then what happens?
Yeah, I'm just like,
I mean, he will do
Bezos
those.
is already the supervillain. I hope he's the Iron Man of our story.
That's true. That's a good point.
I hope, but there's two supervillains.
It's not. Yeah, that I think that's what it's looking more like right now. Like, I don't know if any of these
supervillains.
If you look at look at their history, there's not a lot there that it makes me think like, oh, these guys are, care about the welfare of humanity.
Jim Pattison.
I don't know if you can say that about
Jim Pattison will come swinging in. Oh,
there you go.
Billionaire, superhero. Everyone gets.
Jim Pattison will be our Tony Stark.
I like my supervillains in a cardigan like Bill Gates. All these like Jeff Bezos and Musk are too good looking for me to be like, what's going on here? You're this rich and you still care about having that much hair?
And you know what? Bill Gates is actually still like on the list of top richest dudes, even though he like hasn't worked in forever and just tries to give away his money.
Yeah.
It's all that microchipping he's got going on.
He makes it on the back end.
That's where the money's at.
The thing I want to know is I got to figure out how knowing where people are turns you into a billionaire, because everybody doesn't want to get like Bill Gates vaccine because they're scared it would track them. And I don't get how knowing where I am makes Bill Gates money. That's the only thing. Like, everybody's so scared of it.
A lot of conspiracy theories make no sense when you ask one question.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Especially when you consider it's like, hey, you carry a tracking device around with you 24 hours a day already. It is your phone. Anyone like, I can fucking see your location.
Phone into my show sometimes, like the QAnon dudes or whatever, they'll phone up and they're just like, the senior citizens want us to open the economy. They don't care if they die. And I'll be like, okay, sure, man. My grandma, I don't want to kill my grandma so you can go to a brew pub. And I say, is that what your grandma said? And then the dude will be like, oh no, I never asked my grandma. I say, okay, well, phone your grandma and ask her if she will die so that you can go 5-pin bowling. And then he's like, oh. And I'm like, come on, man. It's like fucking seniors. Like, think about the senior, and then all of a sudden the dude was like, oh yeah, right. I'm like, come on, just stop reading shit on the internet and phoning me up and repeating it to me.
Yeah, and it's like,
do you get a lot of calls like that? Like
you don't get as many
theory shit or
you don't get as many as you think. Most people are cool. Like 95% of people are cool. But you remember the shitty ones, you know what I mean?
Yeah, they are more memorable.
That's what's
99% of people that phone in or whatever are cool, right? Mm. They usually just want to tell you about traffic or know about traffic and or contests. But there is the odd QAnon guy that phones up and they're always the debate me bro. You know what I mean? It's the what about him bro. What, Jeremy, you said on the radio that you didn't like the attack on DC. well, what about this? And I'm like, what about it? Fuck me, we're not talking about that.
Yeah. That's a good segue, Jeremy.
Hey, that is a great segue. Jeremy, what do you think? Arguably the biggest news story to come out of last week after being dad, after Trump getting suspended.
The biggest
on Twitter.
story from Wednesday last week was the attack on.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be hard to top
Was,
being dad, but then fucking the cosplayers showed up and they weren't
it goes
messing
to
around.
show though, also like when you put stuff in context, like when I woke up Wednesday morning, the biggest thing in the world was Caillou was canceled. You know what I mean? And I was like, fucking had a take on Caillou. And then I went home and I had to go buy my daughter a Funko Pop. And I had to go all the way out to New Westminster.
Which one?
She's into Overwatch, so I bought her Mercy from Overwatch.
Nice.
Okay.
So
Dope.
I'm driving out to New West, and I had heard rumblings that shit had started to go south in Washington, D.C. So I turn on the radio, and I'm like, oh, my God, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm losing it. When the CBC is like, there's a straight on like civil war and all this stuff. And I'm like losing my mind. And I come home and you turn on the TV and it's crazy. And you go on Twitter and the tape. Well, you weren't on Twitter, Derek, but everyone else is on Twitter. And the tapes
Everyone else was.
And I mean, there were people who were like, this is worse than 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
The craziest thing that's ever happened. And at the time I was like, yes. But then I had to go off the internet. You know what I mean? And I had to kind of put it in context and just, contextualize it. You know, I mean, there were people that were like, this is worse than 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
But then I had to do some like actual thinking. And this was bad. And it was ugly and embarrassing. You know what I mean? If I'm an American, I'm embarrassed. If Republicans were capable of being embarrassed, that should have been embarrassing for them.
If they have the capacity for shame.
Yeah.
If they had the capacity for shame. That
If it hasn't been burnt out over the last
there was a
40
lot of
years yet.
ridiculous moments for sure, and a lot of ugly moments. But then I was like, well, 9/11, over 3,000 people died.
Yeah.
And like, let's also though remember that 9/11 then triggered, I don't know, we've been basically fighting some country now for like almost 20 years.
Yeah.
That is, I mean, I don't know the latest death tolls, and that's a morbid thing to think about. But I mean,
they're more than the people who died at the Capitol.
9/11 contributed to another millions of deaths, displaced people, broken countries. This was bad, but so far, and we'll have to only use time to tell, does it now trigger a bunch of even worse things down the road? Do we get better from it? Do we get worse? That will only be time. But we know from 9/11, I got to take my fucking shoes off in the airport to this day.
Yeah.
9/11. That's annoying for me. But then let's also talk about thousands and thousands of lives lost because of 9/11, not just on the day of, but that then triggered horrendous violence for decades. Will this do that same thing? Probably not.
My thing was like you, I was like, I heard about like people were like the Civil War is starting, and I was like, holy shit. And then I was like, I got to see what's going on. And I started looking at pictures. I was like, wait, these losers? Is this a Civil War? And it's like a guy with face paint and like Viking horns and no shirt. And I'm like,
super dumb.
What? And then there's like other guys and they're like, we're taking this. And they're like taping each other. And I was like, oh.
But there were some really interesting takes. Number one, where they're like, well, how easy it was for fucking dummies to storm the Capitol. They're like, oh, now this is hilarious and we're having some great jokes. But now let's imagine you're actually a trained terrorist.
Mm-hmm.
You could be like, okay, right? You're learning from this.
Yeah.
And they're saying like 95% of those people were just idiots. You know what I mean? Just dumb.
Yeah.
They made up why they're angry. Like it's sci-fi. And but they're like, what if a few of those people were actually agents of other governments? They were able to, for a couple hours, go through Congress and take hard drives, notes, information, you know what I mean? Like they were got access.
Well, they just fucking walked in. Like that's the most surprising thing to me. Like, and I similar to that, I have to wonder how many legitimately dangerous people saw that, or like terrorists or like enemy actors, and they were like, look at what these morons accomplished. Like this is like a brigade of 100 hillbillies who
I did read some
an
interesting takes that were like, look, man, don't put too much power into these maniacs that did this. But could there have been actually intelligent evildoers who cosplayed being an idiot and got in there and took a hard drive or scoped things out or mapped things out or whatever, right? So that was kind of an interesting take from that as well. And then I've had, from my libertarian bros, they're all like, here's what's going to happen. Joe Biden's going to tamp down on protest laws.
Yeah.
Because of this, and us, not us, we're not America, but let's say Americans on the left will applaud that because they want to punish fucking hillbillies from all over, right? But those laws are now on the book, and the next time you have what maybe you believe to be a legitimate protest, there's going to be even stricter laws that can come down and smash on you, possibly, right? Like,
yeah, like now you're going to have the left wing who wants to put just as many like hurdles and stuff to have a protest as the right wing, because everybody on the right wing, when the Black Lives Matter protests and the
they want
defund
to
the
smash
police,
on them, right?
they're like, we can't have people gathering. This is bad. And then the left were like, no, this is all freedom to protest and stuff.
Right.
And now,
but then the right made strict laws because of BLM, and they're like, those laws that they made to punish BLM are actually going to be the laws used to punish them.
Yeah.
To punish
and then we're going to
people.
come up with stricter laws because we're embarrassed and we want to punish them. So then boom, that hasn't happened, of course. So I'm just talking about like, this is the other shit I've read from other people.
Oh yeah.
But it was just a thing that had me thinking like, okay, that's an interesting thing to watch.
Mm-hmm. Like
you got to think about the unintended consequences.
Sorry, I was just going to say we could get like the second Patriot Act or something like that.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, they'll always find reasons to erode civil liberties, right? Like that's kind of the name of the game in the government. Like the more control they can have, or the more subdued they can keep the people, the better it is for them. So I think it's just a question of what form that takes.
I think a lot of these people that were involved in this DC insurrection, even though maybe it seemed like the police were a little softer on them.
Yeah.
Than they have been on other groups that protest, and that's quite documented that they were, and that they had a different level of commitment to defense versus these protesters than they have at BLM or other groups. And I think though a lot of those people will still meet the law, and it'll be kind of like the Vancouver riots, right? Like if you remember the Stanley Cup riots, which I mean, if we're going to power rank dumb riots,
that's a good point.
Stanley Cup riot
up there
is way dumber than even what happened in DC, because at least in DC, those people, whether they're misguided and brainwashed and fucking have rotten brains, they did, maybe in their hearts, honestly believe what they believed. The Stanley Cup riots were just fucking hooligans, right?
But over a sports thing, and the Guns N' Roses riot too.
The Guns N' Roses, but all those people did end up meeting, had to answer for what they did after. You know what I mean? The police were able to go through tape and footage and find all those dudes and get in trouble. And I think that's what's going to happen to a lot of the DC people as well. They'll just go through the tape, go through the video, and the police will show up at their house one day and be like, hey man, remember that time?
Yeah. Like there's a lot of people from the DC thing that are losing their job already. Like they're like, people are recognizing them and they're just like getting fired left and right.
I got no tears for those people.
Oh,
man.
no, absolutely not. And another guy was wearing his lanyard from his job.
Out of control.
Like, from his job.
He wore his lanyard from his job. He had the worst neck beard I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, and he was wearing his hat on top of his hoodie hood. Like, what was that? Who wears a hat like that?
Who wears their work badge on a riot?
Why would you even have your work badge with you?
Like, I love this job too much.
There were literal Republican. There were Republican lawmakers from other states, like a couple states there, like people who sit in like state senates.
Yeah. And like CEOs of companies. There was like a marketing CEO there. It's like, how did you not think this would be bad exposure?
People are dumb.
Yeah.
Like I get attending the rally or whatever, but like making the decision to
it's like there was an indie rocker named Ariel Pink. He attended the rally and left.
Yeah.
And people were like, I want to cancel you. And he's like, I was at the rally. I didn't do the riot. I left. You cannot agree with my politics, of course. Sure. But he's like, I didn't throw a rock through any windows. I didn't steal Pelosi's name tag or whatever.
Yeah. Or you could just
get photographs sitting at her desk. Like, what a dipshit.
You could cancel Ariel Pink because his music sucks.
You know what? I never really listened to much before.
That's just a dig at Matt, who's in the comments, because he likes Ariel Pink.
Oh, okay, right on. I never really listened to Ariel Pink.
So that's me punching down from my platform, but it being okay because he's a personal friend.
Oh, Ariel Pink did get canceled. Dropped by record label after attending the Stop the Steal rally.
I mean, it's hard because it's like he's in an industry where he's selling himself and his product, so he should be more aware of that product and how it's affected by his actions and stuff.
I don't agree with Ariel Pink. Like I said, I never listened to him before. I ain't gonna start now. And I guess what weirds me out sometimes is how people can be so unaware. I guess like, how did Ariel Pink think that was going to play out for him?
Yeah, exactly. Like, how did he
do you want to do the casino and state fair circuit with Kid Rock and fucking Ted Nugent? Is that your future? You're going to be with hits? You're going to play with Trapped. You know what I mean? Like, come on.
I think another thing too is Ariel Pink is kind of like a more arty guy, so his fans are typically from the left wing. Like, I don't see a lot of conservatives.
Probably a little more liberal.
So them just finding out that he has these political beliefs would kind of, even if he didn't get dropped from
I think it would hurt a lot of his fans, except for the one in the comment section of your podcast.
Yeah.
He's all like, I'm gonna buy every record. He's going on Ted Nugent's record label after this. Bob with the Baba Records. He'll be fine. Ariel will be fine. I'll be fine.
The other thing that surprised me about this was
you can be. I've noticed there's this like world of people that are just terrible. You know what I mean? Terrible.
Yeah.
Much worse than Derek on Twitter. Derek,
I don't know. That's a very high bar.
Well, maybe now that Derek's not on Twitter,
who are just shitty, but like you can make a living doing that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You can make a living. Like you can. Just
that's the new grift, right? Like you just you look at the right and you just like become some QAnon spouting dipshit.
Right into it.
Yeah.
And there's money in that. Like enough people are doing it. Even Dale's personal favorite, Candace Owens, used to be like a dyed in the wool liberal, and suddenly I think she realized like, oh, there's people to grift.
There's too many liberals
on the conservative side.
She was like, I like money and I can get money, so I'm going to get it.
I am a conservative.
Some of this stuff is so shocking, but I don't even want to call them conservatives because now we've even pushed past like some of the insane stuff they think of is it almost doesn't have a political ideology, right? You know what I mean? Like they are very fluid in what they believe.
Yeah. It's almost like it's like, because it's like you think of conservative and you think of like your typical boomer conservative who was like against gay marriage and had all these like uptight ideals that they didn't like anything. And now you got these like DC conservatives where they're like wearing face paint and they're doing all this stuff that basically their boomer dads must be so mad about. And it's like, and like you said, like their beliefs are fluid and stuff. And they're like, I don't know. It's just, yeah.
I don't even like to call some of these people conservative. I feel like it might be offensive to conservatives. You know what I mean? Like they'll believe one thing, you know, they just believe whatever their leaders tell them, and it can change, and then they just do the mental gymnastics to change with it. It's challenging, and you know it
is definitely more the Trump cult of personality than conservatism, right? But
it's the same thing with the QAnon a little bit, right? Like the QAnon changes with the weather.
Yeah.
The goalposts always move. And so you can't debunk something that's doesn't have a core platform.
That's true. Like the
weird thing is that Dale, go ahead.
Okay,
Dale.
no, I was just gonna my point short. I was just gonna say like some of these people I just thought of this. Like, they might not even be conservatives. It just might be that they don't really fit in with like what they perceive like the left wing
I would
PC
agree
thought,
with that 100%.
and they just like they're lost. And then they see this loud, obnoxious guy, Trump, who's like, "Hey, you guys should be able to be as dumb and obnoxious as you want," and they kind of go over there, and it's like, or like,
yeah, because they could have
yeah.
always been insane clown posse fans, but they chose Trump. You know what I mean?
That's all it took.
There was always a place for them.
Juggalos.
And, right? At least that would have been more constructive.
Mm-hmm.
Drinking.
Yeah, I think it was
fun.
Broadly like anti-establishment basically is the thread there, right? Like I think that's why they threw their weight behind Trump, and it was really interesting, and it will be interesting to see how the Republican, like mainstream conservatives and the Republican Party deal with that faction, because like they are, because Donald Trump was the GOP candidate, I think they consider them within their base, but it's almost like the extreme, like we have what's the extreme left faction, like Antifa, basically, like that boogeyman, but like the extreme
Antifa's
left crowd,
not,
and then there's the extreme.
It's not an organized thing, right? Like it's not like you don't join it. You don't buy an Antifa hat and a flag and put it on your house and do an Antifa fucking trunk parade. Like no one does that. Like it's insane. Oh yeah, sorry, I said the F word.
My kid calls me out for that all the time too. He's like, "You swear a lot on the podcast."
There we go. We done swear.
Sorry. Well, we're sorry. We made your dad swear. We're sorry.
Yeah, it's what the people want.
fault.
We're sorry. Happy birthday, by the way.
Oh, you got scammed where? All right. Well, we'll check it out in a minute, dude. No, he's sad. He was playing Adopt Me, and it was. Don't even get me started on Adopt Me. I hate that game.
What's Adopt Me?
Roblox.
Oh yeah, my cousin, my
And
little
then
nephews
Roblox.
play
And
Roblox.
one's called Adopt Me, and oh my god,
It's so weird. They're like, I play
Yeah.
Roblox, and I'm like,
My
I
kid's
don't even know what
obsessed
that
with it, too.
is. And there's like all these little mini games. Like they were like making pizza in one, and I'm like, this is the whole game.
yeah.
That's what the kids are obsessed with.
Adopt Me is not a good one.
There's
man.
some cool ones though. Like they've rebuilt. Noah loves playing one. It's just like it's the Titanic, and you're a character on the Titanic, and you're actually on the boat, and you can explore it, and then it hits the iceberg and goes down, and you got to like try and save yourself. It's wild.
That's pretty.
But
dark.
I'm gonna have to fly now,
All right, Dale.
because I got the little dude that I got to get ready for bed, and
Hey, no problem. Thanks
All
for
right,
coming
man.
by.
he's upset
Really
about
appreciate
Adopt
your
Me, so I
time.
gotta
Yeah.
yeah, that was good times, guys.
Hey, where can people find you on the internet if they would like to get more of your lukewarm
They will
takes?
find me on the internet, right? What is it? Does it say our names on this thing?
I don't. It says,
does, yeah.
it does. It does. It says
All right.
Jeremy
So then
Baker.
it's Jeremy and Baker, and then put an underscore in there, and then it's. If you do not the underscore, you get the
That's
British
you.
Jeremy Baker. It's not me.
Yeah. Do you want to share
He's
where
much
you
more
work, or
polite.
do you want to keep
I
that
work
a
at
secret?
Fox.
Okay, there we go. Because we hadn't
All right.
said it yet, so
Listen
I
to
didn't know
Jeremy on
if we were
Fox.
not saying it on purpose. Yeah.
On Monday, but it'll be normally in the afternoon, but I'll be Monday morning. All right,
Okay.
but I do gotta fly.
All right.
Thanks a lot, man.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Yeah. No
All
problem.
right.
Appreciate it,
Thank
man.
you. All right. Just us.
All right.
The
That was a
bros back
good,
down.
good time to wrap.
Yeah, that was good.
Good
We're
time
over
to
an
wrap
hour.
it.
He was
Yeah.
good. Do you want to say anything else since we cut off there so fast? Kind of. I think are you lagging or was Jeremy lagging? Because it was like we kept talking over each other a lot, but it wasn't too bad.
I was lagging.
Oh, okay.
I think I was lagging because it would go quiet and I would start talking and then someone else would start talking.
Yeah. It
So it's
might
me.
be.
It's probably me.
Yeah.
Anyway, fuck this podcast. Thanks to everyone
It's
for
that can of beans internet you got.
why do I have a bunch of bean cans strung together to receive these signals? Thank you everyone for tuning in with us this week and every week. I am particularly grateful
Just a bit more.
now that
Sorry,
Now-
Andrew
yeah,
was
Andrea,
asking if
chill
we were
out.
done. Super awkward.
out,
Ruined the
Andrea.
whole podcast. it was going like wildfire till right now. No, it's fine.
Dale,
Hey,
as a
our
toxic
guest had to
male,
leave. Yes, as a toxic male, dude. You don't know how
I was
hard
gonna
it is
make-
to not make super bad
gonna
offensive
make a
toxic
joke.
male jokes just because they would be super bad and offensive. I guess that's a sign of me actually maturing a bit, is not
Growing as a person.
going so bad on Twitter. Like after that, I was like, oh, I could say stuff that would piss everybody off. And I didn't. And where my
You didn't. And neither did I. I mean, I did, but not intentionally.
Yeah, you
I
did.
was like, oh.
and then you
okay,
didn't.
I
And then you
did, but
kind of
not-
did. And then you took it back. It's fine. It's fine.
And then I took
I
it back. And it's fine now.
Nobody can cancel us
We're
because we don't get paid for this. So we're fine. We're fine.
True.
And it's
No
funny
one's,
because before all this happened, like you had joked about nuking the Outrage Factory Twitter account, but before I started following everybody who means something to me personally, we had like 40 followers. So we're not going to go
Yeah.
below 40 followers again. So Derek, I think even though you tried to go full scorched earth, I think you singed
bean
some of
down?
the trees. We'll make it.
yeah. That's that's fine. We'll pull through. We'll do it, and we'll do it together on this, the Toxic Male Podcast, taking the title from Joe Rogan. Fucking go Outrage Factory.
Toxic, toxic
thanks for
masculinity
tuning in.
factory.
You can find me on the. Oh no, shit! You can't find me on the
You
internet
can't find
anymore.
you on the Twitter. Hey, you want to give us your
maybe I'll see
signal
you on
username?
No, I'm on Parlor now at.
Oh, that's what I meant.
Toxic
I effed up the
Male
joke.
10.
Yeah,
What Yeah.
dude. As
Parler.
if Toxic Male 101 isn't already taken on Parlor.
It's like, and it's there because it's Toxic Male 1 through 101.
Yeah,
and
you'll have
they're
to do
all,
is you'll have to put like the square shapes. It'll be like little square, big square, Toxic Male, big square, little square, Infinity Jester's hat at Parlor.
Yeah. Anyway, those are my people now that I've been canceled, so you can find me over there. Dale, where can people find you?
Well, you can still find me on Twitter because I have nothing better to do, so I'm not quitting Twitter. At SuperDalebot. You can find me on Instagram, which I post pictures of trees at Dalebot. What's your Instagram? Well, it's like murder,
it's
isn't it? Deke with like
it's
4
Deke
E's.
with 3 E's. I'm spending a lot of time on Instagram lately as well, so you can find me there. You could find us allegedly only be Dale at Outragefactorypod on Twitter. Like us on Facebook.
We do have an Outrage Factory Reddit page, but it hasn't been updated in a long time because there's nobody there. I'm sorry. If people would like to interact with us on Reddit, because you can it's almost like a comment forum, I can start uploading episodes there and then you can go and talk about them underneath and stuff. If that's something people are interested in, then I don't mind doing it.
What is it? I'll spend time there.
It's just r/Outrage Factory. I'm pretty sure.
It says I just tried going there and it says I have to be invited to be part of it.
That's probably why there's no one there.
Checks out.
We could probably figure this out not on the podcast, Derek.
We'll get there. I'll be there. Hey, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. And until next week,
stay angry.
But not angry at me.
Going live.
What's this? Okay. We'll get into it on the air.
Were you just gonna ask what Bean Dad was, Derek?
No, I was gonna ask what Michael Keaton is playing Batman in a Batman franchise movie.
No, just The Flash.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.